Alright, hello everyone. This is a video for Solon Honors Chemistry where we're going to talk about the factor label method. I would make sure that I have my packet open to page 29 in front of me. I might also have some scrap paper because we're going to work some problems together. And I might also have a calculator with me. Alright, so the factor label method, and you don't need to write any of this down yet on page 29, is a way for us to solve math problems in chemistry, where ultimately what we are doing are converting between different units. So in other words, we're taking a measurement in one unit, and we use the factor label method to change it to an equal measurement, so we're talking the same quantity, just with a different unit. And you have some examples on the screen there. Now there are a couple of things that we need. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time right now on this slide, but the big thing is that we need a conversion factor. That I think might be kind of the toughest thing to pick up over these next couple of classes. And what a conversion factor is it's a valid relationship or an equality. So in other words, what it is it's two equal measurements, like 60 minutes equals 1 hour, that we're going to write as a fraction or a ratio. And it's this conversion factor that's going to let us convert from one unit to another. And so the way that we need to make sure we set up these conversion factors is that our numerator and denominator, remember, it's a fraction, which we can also describe as a ratio. They have to be equal to each other. So again, 60 minutes equals 1 hour. 1 minute equals 60 seconds. 4 quarters equals $1. 12 eggs equals 1 dozen. Where, again, both terms are describing the same amount, just with different units in different ways. And again, what we do with these conversion factors is to cancel out one unit, basically make one unit cancel out and wind up with a new one. So when we set up our conversion factor, the unit in the denominator should be the same as our given, the one we're starting with. And the numerator's unit, the unit that's going to go on the top of our ratio or fraction, is going to be the unit we want to convert to. So we have some examples. Hopefully, there we go. So a bunch of different examples, where again, you'll notice in each of these, we're writing it as a fraction, and we're talking two equivalent measurements. All right, so let's talk steps here. So with steps, this is what I would start writing down on page 29. Step number 1 is to write down our given amount and put it over 1. In other words, we're going to turn it into a fraction or a ratio. Then we're going to go ahead and set up our conversion factor. So we write our given unit on the bottom, because again, we want it to cancel out. Think of like x over x. That simplifies to 1. It cancels out. Then we write the new unit we want on the top of the conversion factor. Then we fill in with our numbers that, again, make our conversion factor true. Then we set up another conversion. Maybe it's a two-step problem. And then we do our math. And what I like to tell students is multiply across the top. So any numbers on the top of the fractions, we multiply, and then divide by any numbers on the bottom. So let's try this out. We're going to be assisted with our friend Wilbur for number 1 on page 31. And your page is kind of written a little bit differently. I turned it into a question. Your page just says 562 minutes to hours. So in other words, we're asking how many hours are in 562 minutes. So here comes Wilbur. And so he tells us, write the given and put it over 1. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually just going to write this out because the formatting is a little crazy. Thought I fixed it, but I didn't. Okay, so first step, we take our given and we write it over 1. Let's make sure I have my pen. Yes, I do. So our given is 562 minutes. And I need to make sure I include units here. Write it over 1. And then again, what we do in factor label method is we take that given and we're going to multiply it by our conversion factor. So now in step 2 and 3, I set up my conversion factor. So I'm going to be multiplying by another ratio. And I put the unit I start with, it has to go on the bottom. And I want to change that to hours. So we should maybe double check something here. Do we know a relationship with minutes and hours? Well, we said it earlier, 60 minutes are in 1 hour. So we can use those in one step. So again, notice minutes is on top and on the bottom, so it cancels out. So now we can fill in the numbers. 1 hour is 60 minutes. And so we want to make sure 1 goes next to hours and 60 goes next to minutes. And now we can do our math. So I always like to double check that units will cancel, minutes on top and on the bottom. That cancels out. And so to do the math, remember we multiply across the top. 562 times 1 divided by any number on the bottom. So 562 divided by 60. And I get an answer of 9.3666 repeating. Okay, a couple of things to check here. We should always double check these things. I probably should have put this in the notes. So we should double check sig figs. And we should also double check to make sure that we have units on that answer. So to double check sig figs, we always go back to our given number. So as I look at 562, how many sig figs does it have? If you said 3, you are correct. So that means we only want to keep 3 sig figs in our answer. So we keep the first 3. So 9.3. And then I only look at that last number. 6 is next to a 6, so it rounds up. So numerically, my answer would be 9.37. And then I got to double check units. I can always look in that last conversion factor for my unit. The unit would be hours. So 562 minutes is the same as 9.37 hours. Let me try a couple more here real quick. All right, so I'm going to make the white screen disappear. And Wilbur, who was no help to us, never trust a pig with math. Of course, the rest of them look nice. All right, so here's what I said about making sure you do the math. Again, sig figs at the end after we do everything. Always go back to the given, and don't forget units. Let's try a couple more here. And if you're feeling okay, maybe pause the video and try it out. But I'm just going to work through these. So, number 2 on page 31. So I'm going to start with my given. And set up my conversion factor, seconds on the bottom. And if I think about this one, I want to go from seconds to days. Now I'm guessing we don't know that number in our head. We don't know how many seconds are in days. So sometimes we might have to use multiple steps. We know seconds to minutes though, so guess what? We can go minutes. So 60 seconds are in 1 minute. But that still only gives me the number of minutes. I want days, so guess what? I have to set up another conversion factor, where now minutes will go on the bottom. And again, I don't know how many minutes are in a day, but I know minutes to hours. So I can put hours on top. And I know 60 minutes are in 1 hour. So now looking at my units, minutes cancels out. Still don't have days as my final unit though. So I can set up one more conversion factor, because I know every 1 day has 24 hours. And now checking my units, hours cancels out. So now I can do this math where I can go 45,200, and then multiplying across the top, that's all ones, so I can just divide. So I can divide that by 60, divide it by 60 again. Notice I'm not stopping for significant figures. I'm doing my math. So I've divided by 60, divided by 60, divided by 24, and I need to check for sig figs. My calculator gave me 0.523. 148, 148. And so for sig figs, we go back to our given. Decimal point is absent. Fly over the zeros, so 3 sig figs, so only 3 in the answer. So we're just going to keep the 0.523, and then our units would be days. So it would be 0.523 days. So you can see how we can string together multiple conversion factors now. Let's try one more. And again, maybe pause the video, see if you can set this up. And here I go with my work. I'm leaving it in. Put my given over 1. Inches to cancel. Oh, this one's so much nicer because guess what? We know a relationship between inches and feet. So inches will cancel, and we are only left with the unit we want, so this is just a one-stepper. And again, if I'm doing my sig figs correctly, I should round what's on my calculator to 6.4, and then don't forget my unit of feet. So I would consider trying or work through the rest of 1 through 7. In part 2, we're going to talk about conversions with the metric system.